Okay, so here's what you're going to need to do the automatic transmission fluid and filter change. For the 1994 Mercedes E320, it's got the W124 chassis with the 722.3 transmission. They call out for 6.2 liters of Dexron 2/D fluid. Apparently that type of fluid is no longer available, so I am using Dexron 3, which is the next generation up. As I said, you're going to need 6.2 liters, so each of these containers are 3.7 liters, so I have a total of 7.4 liters. Should be more than enough. You're also going to need this kit here, and the kit comes with a new rubber gasket that goes around the automatic transmission pan, as well as a new filter that goes inside the pan, attaches to the transmission. Okay, so let's get started. Hi, this is my 1994 Mercedes E320, and today we're going to do an automatic transmission fluid and filter change. And obviously this is the bottom side of the car, and you can certainly do this job by using jack stands or a ramp, but it's a lot easier if you have access to a lift, such as in my case, where I have a friend who's got a garage, and he was able to let me use the lift. So it's, as I said, it's a lot easier working standing on your feet than working on your back. So this is the automatic transmission pan, and there's a 5mm drain plug right here. The automatic transmission fluid filter itself is inside the pan that attaches to the transmission gearing and that sort of thing. As an additional task, we also have to drain the oil from the torque converter, and that's done by, they give us this little access port over here. There's a 5mm drain plug also on the torque converter, somewhere in the torque converter. So what we have to do is we have to manually turn the engine until that plug lines up with this access hole right here, and then we can put a 5mm hex socket and drain the torque converter as well. In order for us to move the engine manually, we have to use a 27mm socket on the crankshaft bolt that's in front of the engine. In order for us to do that, we have to remove this plastic cover right here, which is held in place by 6 8mm screws, and that's what we're going to do next. The pan itself is held in place by 6 to be determined size bolts here, and there's a rubber gasket that goes around it as well, and that's part of the kit, and we're going to replace that gasket. Okay, so let's take off that pan, turn the engine so that the bolt lines up, and let's get started. Okay, so in order to get to that 27mm that's at the end of the crankshaft, we need some clearance down there, and in order to do that, we have to remove the shroud that goes around the fan here. So let me show you how that's done. Okay, there's a center clip right here, so you kind of pinch it right here and you push it out. Okay, just like that. Okay, then there's 2 metal clips. There's one right here, okay, and there's another one on this side. It's kind of about 3 or 4 inches down below, so that's out. So now you turn. There's 2 shrouds here. There's a small one and there's a big one. So you kind of twist it, and you can see it turn right there. So now it's loose. Now the front one is loose, so we can remove it first. And it takes some wiggling and pushing and shoving, but it does eventually come out like that. Okay. Now you can take out the back shroud, and now finally you have access to the crankshaft bolt, and that's easier reachable from underneath the car. Okay, so here we are underneath the car, and Steve is going to put in the 27mm socket, which is right there, and then we're going to attach a breaker bar to it, and we're going to rotate the engine. Now, it's very important that you rotate the engine the same way that the car normally runs. So if you're standing in front of the car looking towards the back, you want to turn the crankshaft clockwise. Okay, that's very important. Otherwise you may damage some delicate gearing. Okay, so Steve, go ahead and turn the crank. And we should be looking for that plug coming out. Okay, here she comes. Slowly, Steve. A little bit more. A little bit more. Right there. Stop. Perfect. All right. So now we're ready to drain the torque converter. Okay, so we've broken free, I should say, the 5mm plug at the torque converter, and we're about ready to remove it. And as you can see, it's a lot easier working standing up underneath the car rather than on your back. And here comes the oil, the fluid, I should say. Okay, we're going to do the same thing to the transmission pan here in a second. There she is. Okay, we're going to let it drain for about 15 minutes or so, and then we're going to drop the pan right there. Alright, so we've let it drain for about 10 minutes or so, and you will notice that the torque converter by the level, which is about right here on this container, is a lot higher than the level in here. So this unit here is from the pan itself, okay, and this container here was holding the fluid from the torque converter. So the torque converter holds a lot more fluid than the pan itself does. Okay, so we're about ready to take out the pan, and I want to point out that there are two removable tie wraps or zip ties, and here they are right here. And there's a little tab here, so if you press it towards the back, you're able to slide out the zip from the Ziploc portion. There's one right here in the front that's already been removed, and there's another one in the rear here. So you want to take that off, and you also notice there's a bracket right here where this other cable attaches to, and all you have to do is squeeze. There's a little plastic tips right here, and you squeeze them and this piece pulls right out like this. Okay, so we're about ready to put the drain plugs back in, and here they are, and you'll notice that they have two new copper gaskets. So we're about ready to put them in, and we're going to drop the pan, and I'll show you what's inside the pan and the filter. Okay, so we have both the drain plugs back in with the new copper gaskets. Okay, and now we're going to torque it down, and the spec for this is 14 Newton meters, which is about 11.5 foot-pounds. Okay. Okay, right there, perfect. And we do the same thing for the pan. Okay, again, that was 14 Newton meters, or about 11.5 foot-pounds. We're going to drop the pan, and the pan is held in place by 6 13mm bolts. And we're about ready to do that right now. Alright, so here we are, removing the 6 13mm bolts. And just a word of caution, there will be some fluid still into the pan and dropping from the transmission, so be prepared. The torque on these bolts going back on is very critical. It's 8 Newton meters, and do not go over that, otherwise you're going to distort the gasket and you will leak.
No, it's okay.
Okay, there's that little bracket on the side right there. Okay, so that goes back in afterwards as well. Okay, here's the pan is starting to come off. Okay, one more bolt and the pan is out. Okay, here she comes. Okay, so there's still some fluid in there. Okay, and as I said, it's still dripping. And right here is the filter for the transmission. And it's held in place by 1, 2, 3, looks like Phillips screws. So I'll show you how to take that filter off.